Welcome, welcome to a short chat with All for Success. I'm testing here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I'm glad to see or hear all of you out there in All for Success land. Let me know if you can hear me by dropping a little bitty one in the chat. And if you can, it might take me a while to get myself organized. But for those of you who are online and you can hear me, just go ahead and throw one up in the chat. I'm going to always be struggling with my technical process here when it comes to sending out recordings. So if make sure you can hear me, make sure I see that you can hear me. Drop a one in the chat. So welcome to another moment or two with All for Success. This space here is a Sussex friendly space. I like all things Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Okay? So if that is not your thing, I can understand why you might want to send your energy somewhere else. Truly, I understand it. But if you are interested, or if you are also a fan of things that are done with, by, and around Harry and Meghan, and the little ones, Lilibeth and Archie, of course, they will be growing up like weeds, and before we know it, they'll be adults. But if you're interested in having fun, looking at some of the things they're doing, sharing some of the things that they are doing, and just simply sitting down, taking a moment to enjoy what you can enjoy in your day that might be inspired by someone else's day. That is what we do. So I am always coming also from the perspective of a parent of adult children, because to me, Prince Harry, Prince Meghan, although not quite there, they definitely could be the age, they could definitely fall into the age category of my own children. And I just find it fascinating to watch how they're trying to navigate and also succeed through all of the different obstacles that they have. And as a parent, I think from the parent perspective, how I would feel should my children be facing something like that. Now, with all that said, folks, I forgot my cup of coffee on screen, but listen, sit down and get yourself a cup of coffee if that's to do while you're listening in. Go ahead and make that wonderful frappuccino or latte. Or if you are on the exercise vent, if you're out walking, or if you're out biking, or you have your headphones in, then this chat will probably take you through that exercise. It'll definitely get you started. So if you're out there working out, stretching those bones and like I do, and I have to tell you, warning, I don't know what type of exercises I did that made me a little bit sore yesterday, but later in noon felt like I had difficulty walking at all. I was limping along, my legs were sore, and I was like, my God, I didn't run a marathon, so what in the world is going on? But soreness, it just seemed to increase. And I did do a few more kind of windmills and things like that. But I definitely didn't think it would be so intense. And I tell you, I was sore. So with that being said, if you're interested in working out or getting your exercise on, make sure you get yourself ready for that. Get settled in and ready to go. So here's what I'm going to do just for fun. I wanted you all to know that, yes, along with As Ever being in second season and appearing on Netflix, there was also a wonderful interview done of Meg, as if she's my daughter, Duchess of Sussex, Meghan. Yes, there was an interview, and it was quite interesting. The interview was on the channel Bloomberg, and I think you can view it on YouTube, but you can also view it if you have Samsung TV. There's actually a Bloomberg channel. Generally, they are showing stock movement all day long, but every now and then they'll throw an interview or two in their in with their platform. And so if you're really into financial matters and you're really watching stocks, or you want to hear people talk about business ventures, actually I recommend the Bloomberg channel. Now, here's another thing. While that channel is airing, they are also they generally have little 2-3 line tidbits of what's happening in world news. Now, when they get to that, whatever it is that they post in that world news box, it's going to just be a quick headline, and definitely double check what's going on or what it's about. If you just read the headline, you can definitely be steered to thinking a particular thing occurred that actually didn't, or it occurred in a certain way that it didn't. But Bloomberg is fairly, and I say fairly, interesting, and it's a great news source for people who are interested in financial information. So if you want to know who's the CEO of what, who's running whatever company, if you want to know how many companies are merging together, it is definitely important to watch. Something as simple as I had no idea that my typical store that I go in, Kroger, was actually merging with a very common grocery store in Texas, and I believe it is called, I want to say Ashton's or Tom's, one of those. And it's worth knowing that because those are two major grocery chain conglomerates, but they're actually merging into a similar product. And in my belief, their attempt is to kind of be a little bit more Publix-like. You know, it's interesting. The Kroger where I live, they actually added a Starbucks inside to their garden or in their produce feature. So I thought that was pretty fascinating. And I'm telling you, it's interesting to know how many businesses actually work together, correlate, or kind of piggyback off each other. I mean, think about it. Kroger's, how many Kroger's are there? So why would you need to put a Starbucks in one? But it's a fascinating idea, brilliant thought. I don't know if you all are familiar, and I know I'm off topic, but hey, why not? Because I'm talking about Bloomberg. I don't know if you all were familiar with the stores like Sears. When I was a kid, the store was Sears and Roebuck. Sears and Roebuck. It had a big catalog that they used to mail out. It was a store that sold everything from lawnmowers and car parts all the way to clothing and small things for children going to school. And that store went out of business. And then there was a store, Borders Bookstore, if any of you are familiar with that. Borders Bookstore, I thought, was lovely. They were generally situated in the mall, and they had a very calm, cozy feeling, which kind of invited you to come in, not only purchase a book, but perhaps sit in their store and flip through their magazines or wander through their stacks. Borders was excellent. And of course, Sears was a huge chain and it carried everything. Those two stores fell into the trap, I will call it, that takeover trap. Now, this is stuff, again, this type of information would be covered by Bloomberg because those stores were acquired. You know, they sort of thought they were partnering with someone. And unfortunately, Borders kind of early got, I would say, consumed in a way by Amazon. Because, you know, they thought, oh, well, they're doing books and book sales. Well, why don't we work a little bit with them? And before they knew it, Amazon was where all the book sales were happening, and their stores tended to kind of drift off into space. So, you know, anyway, that's kind of a background of types of things that are discussed in the Bloomberg setting. But hey, I'll just play to you really, really quickly here. Hopefully you can see this and hear this. Just an opening clip of Megan.
Inherent tension in trying to be relatable while also being a duchess. No, I don't find, I'm just being myself. So I think probably it was different several years ago where I couldn't be as vocal and I had renewed pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest, that was not very myself. I hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 80s when they came in the little egg. That felt a little bit inauthentic, but that's a silly example. But it is an example of when you're able to dress the way you want to dress.
Inherent tension in
trying to be relatable while also being a duchess. No, no, I don't find, I'm just being myself. So I think probably it was different several years ago where I couldn't be as vocal and I had renewed pantyhose all the time. Let's be honest, that was not very myself. I hadn't seen pantyhose since movies in the 80s when they came in the little egg. That felt a little bit inauthentic, but that's a silly example. But it is an example of when you're able to dress the way you want to dress. Inherent tension.
Okay. I'm so sorry that that did play through twice. But you know what? That's kind of what happens when I end up looping some of my video. But I thought that was a fun thing for her to be talking about in an interview. And what she's actually getting at is simply the idea behind over these years of dealing with, life in general, how she is now coming to a place where she feels that she can be comfortable being who she actually is. Now, here's the fun part of that. Like I said, tidbit folks, I, of course, like I told you, I am talking and speaking from the point of view of a parent of adult children, which lets you know that I'm more than 25 years old, right? And there is a journey that, in my opinion, that we all make as we get older. Now, some people don't feel that that's important. Some people don't feel that aging is really important or that it has an impact. I simply have a different belief and I've had a different experience. I am aware that as I moved through various ages, that my perspective, my understanding of the world shifted in small ways, but enough so that I could then continue to, I would say, plug along in my life with a little bit more comfort each time. I will say that I do recall being in my early 20s and I felt all of the time like I was running up against a lot of opposition and constantly having to fight battles. And for whatever reason, in my 30s, something similar, I began to feel like I was missing out on so much, that I had not accomplished what I needed to accomplish. And I fought back and forth with that feeling, right? Well, needless to say, I am a little bit beyond both of those age scenarios. And so I'm now moving into a status of putting down all the heavy stuff now. I can now sit down. I don't have to do the heavy lifting. I don't have to try to run as fast. Well, of course, with my legs and back aching, I can't. But there is a general difference in accepting who you are and where you are in life. And it doesn't mean you stop living. It just means I don't have to put the type of pressure on myself to be able to be to everyone in the world what it is they want me to be, right? So sometimes if the question is a yes or no question, the answer is no. Or sometimes the answer is I don't know. Or the answer might be I don't feel like it. Where in the past, just making just making those simple statements was very difficult, right? Because I needed to know how other people were going to feel about my answer, right? So that's just kind of what I got from her in that short interview space is that she's saying, I'm moving into this place now where I'm beginning to understand who I am. Now, here's the wonder, here's the beauty of where she is. As ever, folks, that's who she is. She wants to be a person who makes things and she loves being in business with the things that she makes. She has great ideas and she wants to share those ideas with other people who are interested in the ideas that she's sharing. What she's also saying throughout that wonderful interview is If you're not interested in what she is doing, and if you're not supportive of what she is doing, basically, you do not exist in her world. And she has no interest in the fact that you're not interested. Now, isn't that wonderful when you get to that place in life where you begin to realize you're not interested, that other people are not interested? So that brings me to what? The commentary coming from across the water. The people across the water now, and they too are beginning to feel it in their own business practices. You know, that there is almost a very shrinking interest in how much pain they can inflict upon other people for absolutely no reason. Now they keep trying to make up reasons for why everyone, you know that friend that you have that tries to tell you why you should dislike someone else, right? Well, that's the UK tabloid media press and those who sponsor the royal firm. They have spent what? Every year since Harry and Meghan have been married, manufacturing reasons for you to dislike them. And they continue to try the same old playbook. I'm not sure why in the world they feel that telling us Meghan is making money, for some reason we're supposed to be upset that Meghan is earning a living. Can you believe that? Well, it's just crazy. I mean, listen to some of their podcasters slash media personalities. They generally blow up in a sentence somewhere. Well, she's making money off of it. Whatever. As if making money is something she's not supposed to do. Isn't that amazing? While they're sitting there making money off of attacking her. Brilliant, isn't it? Truly brilliant. But that's what they do. So anyway, let's get back to the fun stuff. So I did start with Love Meghan, and guys, let me tell you, I have been laughing and truly enjoying what I am seeing so far. Now, so far the shows that have been featured, I think I have seen 1 through 3, I think. I know that these personalities that I have listed here, which we go from all the way here, her makeup artist is sitting there with his makeup table. His name is Daniel Martin. And he was invited to come and basically learn to cook from scratch. And he admitted that cooking is something he does with whatever's instant and easy to cook. So it was really fun to watch him in the kitchen with professional cooks, right? And he was jumping in there and trying to do his part. It was excellent to watch, and he looked like he had a great deal of fun doing it. And then in the middle here is, his name is Tan France. So for any of you who are familiar with the show called Queer Eye, I think it's Queer Eye for the Straight Guy or something like that. These guys are fantastic because their show is built around finding the most super straight man, right? Usually, or straight man, straight family, and helping them with fashion, decorating, and all of these type of things, but with their queer eye flair. And they are fantastic at what they do. And it's fun to watch them transform an individual who, like they say, they're the guys that are queer, but they transform a guy who is just so completely middle of the road, not queer, not not even leaning towards queerness, and definitely not even metro. And they will turn that guy, his fashion, his style, into something that's almost Hollywood level manufactured. But his show is fantastic. So if you all have an opportunity to check out Queer Eye, please do. It's fun to watch as well. Now, his name being Tan Francis, he was fabulous on the show. Megan came in, and of course they did a couple of little things that they cooked, and you guys got to watch it to see some of the stuff that she throws out there. But he had, at least at this point in watching the show, to me, he stated the best line I have ever heard. And that was when Megan was sprinkling dried flower petals, I think, on some type of a fruit tray or or cookies and things, because it's Megan, so she's going to do these kind of flary things. And he stopped and asked her, he said, "Oh, wait a minute. You guys are going to love this. You got to watch this." He says, "Wait a minute. What is that?" And Megan responded with, "Oh, that's like sprinkled flowers. I add those to everything." And she talked about how much she loved them. And he responded to her with, "Why, that is the gayest shit I have ever seen." Guys, I couldn't stop laughing. Now, it was just too much for him to say that because he was like, "I don't know what that is." He goes, "But it was just too much." I laughed and I thought, this is just too funny. And she presented him with a gift before he left that I thought that was a marvelous scene. Please check it out. It was very, very touching. Um, we also had, of course, on the show, the beautiful Chrissy Teigen. Now she came in. They did a little bit of cooking, and they made crackers, like these nice crackers that were almost like Cheez-Its. And then they did some jewelry making. That was kind of interesting. And I thought, now, if you want to do a craft like that, wow. They were making jewelry, but they were putting flowers in the jewelry. And it was really neat. Of course, they had to buy the actual jewelry cast, but you could make these little flower things and beautiful little jewelry pieces that could be used as little necklaces. And so they did that. So that was lovely. And again, you know what? Her show just demonstrates that she's sharing with friends, she's sharing with love. And it was just a fantastic thing for her to do. And it's something that, you know what, even in small ways, we can all do it. I am very often even somewhat disappointed in myself that I don't reach out and share more moments with people that pass through my life. I think about how Megan displays her thoughtfulness, and the gifts that she creates on these shows. And they're very minor type of gifts. They're not, it's not like she's got dropping millions of dollars on anyone, but she does these very nice things, homemade, very personal touches. And it just is interesting that she maintains thoughtfulness towards other people. And that is something that I truly need to practice more of. I really need to get better at that myself, right? So, look, let me see before I get too caught up here in all of my chatter, before I go on and on. Let me see if anyone here is in the chats that I might be missing. Hold on a second. And you guys, listen, feel free to drop comments below, and definitely if you have anything you'd like to share, drop it in the chat. All right, I see that. Let's see. I see that Keen for Concepts is here in the chat. Thank you for being here so much, and thank you for dropping a howdy to everyone in the chat. Look, it is really great for me when I know that some of you out there are listening and you might be enjoying what we're talking about. Feel free to drop a hello in the chat, and if you have any comment that you would like to add, feel free as well. We can always throw that in on the chat line. But thank you so much, King for Concepts, for being in the chat. So let's see. So those are the three big folks that I've seen so far, and then I'm going to continue to watch with love. I might watch a few episodes today. So the main thing to know that, again, that we're talking about today from the most positive viewpoint possible is that Meghan explained that she and Prince Harry, they have interests that are commingled sometimes. Like, not that they're both approaching everything the same way, and that they both have separate interests in their lives, of course. They're moving in the directions towards the things that they are working on. But they were that she mentioned how often those things will interlink. So it's wonderful that, for example, as ever, her show, and some of the interviews that she does, they are perhaps solely featuring Meghan, maybe the books that she buys and things like that. And then there are the charities and the foundations and the type of work that Harry does, which might be, of course, on a more international scale, but that those things are also features of things that she likes. For example, helping children or working with children in social media spaces. So those things will interlace, right? Even though they both approach them separately. And I thought that that was wonderful of her to point out, because what is some of the criticism coming from places that we don't really need to to take in? Some of the criticism is with from people who will get angry that Meghan may be featured in some activity that Prince Harry is also featured in, right? Prince Harry might be working with the soldiers in Invictus, and they get angry if Meghan attends the function. All right, can you believe that? But that is kind of their problem and their mentality. Whereas what does she like to do is, of course, work with people who are struggling through any type of dilemma, and she's very thoughtful in how she responds to that. So it really should make sense to them. Now, in the meantime, here, while she's doing all of her work and while she's being featured in all of her places, what's happening in the background with our lovely, wonderful Prince Harry is we're hearing in the background the noise, right? And I'm gonna stand by to see how this plays out. We're hearing about the noise of whether or not he is supposed to be trying to accommodate a meeting with King Charles. Um, Many people are concerned when it comes to him spending time or meeting up with King Charles. And I understand why. Because there's a lot to be asked when it comes to who wants what and what is their motive. Yes? Um, I know that separation in a family is difficult. That's going to be the situation. People in families often don't get along, right? So that's not news. But along with people perhaps having a struggle in getting along, there's just also the thought behind, what is your motive for wanting this type of meeting? Do you want it to always look like Prince Harry needs to come back bended knee, groveling and hat in hand? It seems that's a need for the UK. They, for whatever reason, they don't want this greeting or meeting to be on like equal footing, right? So they always, everyone in the UK, I say everyone, meaning the media personalities, they're looking for some type of feedback that Harry is regretful, that he's just miserable and he's regretful. But there is nothing here, nothing in the US that is indicating his misery, right? Does he miss his friends? Probably. Does he miss being in his old areas of comfort? Probably. But a man like that, when they make a decision, I don't think he's the type of man that makes a decision lightly. And once they make that decision, the decision is made, right? So we're going to kind of have to be on hold to see what types of attitudes he might have towards returning to the UK, even if it's just for a casual sit down or chit chat with King Charles. That's going to be a little bit difficult. So here I have another clip. Let's see which one this is. I'm not sure which one I should. Okay, so let's see what this clip is talking about, and then we'll join back in with that.
Oh, I just got the heat from that. I want the with love take on, like, why does this taste so good? What's so special about this? It's the squishy bun, it's the crunch in the onion, it's the texture of the meat, they're perfect. It's kind of a perfect meal, and I'm thrilled that you're having it with me.
Yup, this is me, in Santa Barbara, devouring smash burgers with a Duchess. This is Megan, the Duchess of Sussex, one of the most talked about women in the world. You know, or you may.
Oh, I just got the heat from that. I want the with love take on, like, why does this taste so good? What's so special about this? It's this.
All right, there you go. So once again, that was her clip again with the Bloomberg interviewer. And at that time, they had run down to get hamburgers or smash burgers at a local jaunt. And that food looked great. Hey, if I have an opportunity to eat that, that sounds pretty good. So, of course, what is their focus? Their focus is always family moments. So they try to keep themselves locked in and very tight to doing things that uplift and bring joy to themselves, their friends, and their surroundings. But that doesn't mean they don't work hard. They seem to be always at work. Now, what we're also standing by for, and we're going to keep our ears and eyes open for, is any progress with Prince Harry and the charity sent to Bali. It actually looks like that they will probably have to roll that up, especially after some of the finances are being discovered. And I know that they've tried to say that, okay, nobody did anything wrong, nothing to see here, we're going to go on as usual. But that charity is going to have difficulty in keeping the fundraising level where it was without Prince Harry's involvement, right? It's just going to be difficult. People are not as going to be as entertained with the charity from the other point of view when there is no feature of perhaps Prince Harry and his friends who play polo and the things that they do. So that's going to be difficult, right? But I'm sure they're going to try to come up with a way to make it all make sense. It's just going to be very hard. So again, we were talking about Meghan and how she's making money. Meghan discussed in Bloomberg a lot of her thoughts about being a lady, a woman in business, and for her, you know, in her on her behalf, I must say, she would really like for people to be able to approach being in business, not so much that they are a woman and not having that in the forefront of their thoughts, but simply because they want to be in business. But I must say, at least from, of course, my age group and from where I sit, being in business and being female can be very challenging. And I think that she is speaking to that challenge, but you have to understand, just like what she's going through in life, that you simply have to fight your way through to the end, right? And so she talked about business in general, and she even mentioned here in one little comment that the very nature of negative media about her, the constant barrage of negative media, all of that is happening because it is a business. It earns a lot of money for people to simply have and maintain nothing to say positive about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And she talked about that the fact that somewhere someone makes money, like a paycheck, they earn a living. Why? Because they are constantly getting clicks about Meghan Markle, whether they're negative or positive. But primarily, there's a business in being negative. The question that we should ask ourselves is, wonder who's funding that? And I know many of you have thoughts. We have lots of thoughts. And when it comes to women in business, these ladies if you notice, their mothers are also women who have been in business of a sort, right? Of some type. With Beyonce, her mother Tina Knowles runs much of the business behind Beyonce. The same with Kim Kardashian and her mother, right? And then, of course, from the time that that Duchess Meghan was a young child, her mother worked often in the entrepreneurial regions of like being a yoga instructor and things like that. So they have a huge understanding of entrepreneurship and working for a living. These are the type of people who they push and strive to be the best at what they do. And I have to say, I might not have that level of drive, but I think it's wonderful when people do. But of course, in today's media, what do they try to do to people who have this type of image? Well, they try to label it as something negative, right? Now, I mean, I may not agree with every method of business that they're involved in, but I have to say they are in business and they learn the prospects and the pieces of business and the legal aspects enough to move and maneuver in that world. And you got to give it to them. That's hard to do. I struggle just trying to read a menu. So, can you imagine getting a business up and running and keeping it flourishing? I tell you, it's phenomenal. But you know what? Hats off to these ladies and the work they do. All right, guys. So we're at that point in time in this wonderful little chit chat. This is the time where I am about to wrap it up. So let's give ourselves a little bit of a moment to pause. Thought that crosses my mind when it comes to some little scriptures. Sunday morning, you should be heading to Sunday school anyway. But just in case, I'll throw this out there from you. And no, this is not an invitation to a cult. I wish maybe one day I'll do that. But at the moment, I'm not involved in a cult. So I just throw these out there, tidbits of things to think about, right? So I thought about this because I think often how things can make you so frustrated. And I get so frustrated so very easily. You know, it's just amazing how you can be, doing something very minor, wandering around and with your shoes off, and then step on something and hurt your foot. And that just encourages what? Maximum frustration. And I feel that way about a lot of things in my life. When you have deadlines to meet, things to do, a list to fill out, you just get frustrated. You become agitated and irritated by small things, right? But look, Philippians 4, 6, and 7, it says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving." In other words, folks, be grateful, be thankful, pray, right? Think about what it is you want. And it says, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding. Right? Remember, instead of being frustrated, do the work and try to remain in the peace that transcends all understanding. And then guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. Basically, try to keep your heart and your mind clean as much as you can, right? In other words, try not to be angry. Try not to respond in anger, which is it difficult? Absolutely. But we're going to work at doing our best to achieve that. And the key thing is do not be anxious about anything. And you'll hear people say things like, well, God got it. Of course, that's hard to stick to when you're having troubled times, right? But do your best to remember that. And then for Psalms 46, which is kind of to give you a little bit of comfort, God is our refuge and our strength. And He's ever present, ever present. And He's an ever present help in trouble. Keep that in mind. So, with that in thoughts and behind you, try to take a deep breath and push through in whatever you're doing, push through to the other side. But of course, with all of that, we still have to work and pray. We have to do the work, do the background, earn the living, right? And we do have to study. And those things take time and they take effort. But don't be discouraged, right? And maintain that God is our refuge. All right, folks. So with that said, what we're going to do, we're going to say it's going to be a great morning. Keep exercising, stay fit, keep your mind and your thoughts clear. And what we're going to do is head on out. Thank you guys for sharing some time here at All for Success.